But all of a sudden, a Zed becomes like +6/+6, and he's summoning freaking 9/8s with first strike. You're like, what do I do?
Why is this happening to me?
I thought I could take care of this later. I thought there was time. I thought there was time.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 15. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
We're here to beat the heat. Hot Lana can't hold us down, baby.
Hot Lana. Yeah, we're back, man. We're back with a new region. It's always exciting when we shift from, we're going from Ezreal, going on a little adventure through the deserts to end up in Ionia.
And these... I was about to try. I don't know how to speak English anymore. I'm having a stroke.
Okay.
But in these very trying times, let us search for peace and harmony.
Become
one with the elements.
Oh my gosh! Housekeeping
here in Ionia.
So you can listen to us everywhere as usual. Follow us on Twitter to keep up to date on episodes. That's at podcast COR, so podcast core, and you can send emails to the same thing at podcastcore@gmail.com. And then leave likes, follows, and a short review. Those are always great. We're still trying to do the 5-star thing. I actually haven't checked to see if that's
6.
Oh, 6 stars. Sorry, I was aiming too low. But yeah, so tell a friend to stand united and listen to the Casuals of Runeterra from dawn till dusk.
This one's even worse because I played myself.
State of the game.
State of the game.
State of the game. All right, so I haven't played as much as I wanted.
Are you a robot?
At this point, it's a t-shirt, right? I did get to play a bit. Life got kind of busy, man. We went like at work. We got in that last week of the release. So I was focused on that. And then I did the holiday thing, or it took a couple days off, but it just wasn't exactly what I expected. A lot happened over that weekend. I did get to see my mom and my grandma, so that was cool.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, but the little bit I did get to play, I was playing around with a Noxus Overwhelm deck that was posted a while back, just randomly on Runeterra decks, which everybody follows on Twitter, that post like master or decks from people who use them to get into masters.
That's the same list that has just like only the harrowing is the top end and everything else is mono Noxus, right?
Exactly. And your biggest play is you're bringing back the 3/1 that deals 2 damage when it dies. So the more you bring it back, the more direct damage is technically doing because it gives it ephemeral. That's your gist. And then Darius as a top end is, pretty still sick. I mean, Darius is still a good card. Just doesn't get a lot of love. I'm having issues running it just because I haven't played it enough. There is some nuance there. It just doesn't beat up people because the ladder currently is varied enough where you're running to a lot of different things. So I just need to play it some more and I'll probably love it more. What about you?
Yeah, the ladder is definitely like it's settled so much into being slower too that obviously like any aggro deck I think is gonna have fun there, but your decision making has to be on point now. Yeah. It's not AFK 1 drop 2 drop 3 drop and just smork.
Yeah.
Which it was. Going to my deck was kind of what I was running into, and I decided that I got frustrated, and I went back to my scout deck with Quinn and Misfortune.
Talk about smorking.
And now I'm the guy that's beating up on people trying to do new things and punishing them for having fun with the game, and I can't look at myself in the mirror. And here we are.
Yeah, I've been running into a little... more Scout than I thought I would run into, especially in this meta. Because when Scout came out, everybody thought it was going to be broken. Turned out to be balanced, so Riot knows what they're doing. But I'm starting to see some of the 5/5 Scout a lot more than I thought. The upgraded one.
Yeah, I still have it kite, but I think more people were willing because I ran it originally before it got buffed, and I think more people became willing to run it after Remembrance, like Lux and Karma decks got popular, and then it got buffed. And it's part of Remembrance package.
Yeah.
Like that's a card you're going to hit. So people were hitting that more often. And it's like, wait, this actually feels better than getting the Radiant Guardian if I didn't have a minion die.
Yep.
This card doesn't seem bad. And I think that's why people are like actually playing it now.
I agree. This takes us to our main topic, yin and yang. So we're talking about Zed Shen. Like it had to happen. This pairing obviously goes together. We had to start off with this one, and the story is not anything crazy. It's pretty by the books as far as when we get into those two champions. But first, we talk about the spells. So the first spell I want to talk about is Dawn and Dusk. So this is a 6-cost slow spell that has summon 2 exact copies of an ally. They're ephemeral. So obviously it's a play on Zed, his shadows. We're going to do some Ryan cost math here. We haven't done it in a while. So obviously Zed costs 3, right? This card makes 2 copies. 2 times 3 is 6.
Like, it's worse that you gave it a title.
Ryan's cost math.
Oh, welcome to cost math.
This was one of those cards, though, that definitely showed up more than I expected. Especially when it came out at the beginning, because, obviously you look at slow spells in the grand scheme of things, you're like, oh, well, obviously burst is where it's at. And then you look at the cost, you're like, okay, that's definitely on the higher end, because 6 cost here is higher than 6 in most other card games. So the fact that we did see a good bit of it in different strategies, because copying 2 copies of an ally, that means champions as well, right? So it's a very versatile card. There's a lot of powerful cards out there with effects that trigger once they die. So the ephemeral has an effect there. And
Anivia.
Cough. So it forces your opponent to do things. But I like the quote here, and a lot of the quotes for this one I'm probably going to go through for this episode. But it says, Shen is one man caught between the perils of 2 worlds. He will fail them both. I devote myself to Ionia alone. Zed. Kind regards.
Kind regards. Nothing personnel.
And we'll get into more where that thought process, because there's a lot of layers here with the duality of these two. But what do you got for us?
A lot of layers. So I went with another 6 cost, although very different.
Wait, you
in execution.
Copied me?
I'm leaving. This is a solo podcast
from half
now.
Court.
This is now a solo podcast. So I went with another 6 mana cost spell. It's Stand United, and it's a 6 mana burst spell. Swap 2 allies and give them barrier this round. And this is a spell that I really like the more that I thought about it. Like, I like it more than I thought I did. And a big reason is the swap. There is not much as far as the interaction of when units get lined up. And it's something that you don't think about it as much. Me personally, I didn't think about it as much until I started trying to play around with Karma and Lux. Because I was pairing Lux with every champion under the sun that wasn't the obvious one. And the fact that, like, if something gets pulled with Challenger, I get to actually say, hang on a second, I have a card that says that I'm going to switch it up. And it's obviously the combat trick of adding barrier too. It's a really cool card, but it was also one I had to pick because, we're talking about Shen and Zed today. Of course we're going to talk about Shen's ultimate while we're at it. Like,
the most surprising thing with this card was I started to see it pop up in aggro decks at their top end to essentially close out games, to finish up, because with an aggro deck, obviously you're trying to get all your stuff out there very quickly. But at some point you need to close it out, and to have this as a combat trick that allows you to survive to that next turn, you can use this on offense or defense. That will push the subsequent turn in your favor, which is hopefully where you can finish the game. and its burst speed, which is great.
The combat trick, as far as in aggro, it's so satisfying too, because you really do feel like a ninja.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Animation's
okay,
great,
well,
yeah.
I blocked it. I'm alive at 1. Haha. Do the hand signs Naruto style.
Logs
JK.
everywhere. Just pile of leaves.
Yeah. Not the Hokage.
So this takes us to our first follower. And I have the Silent Shadow Seer, which I would always in my head say Shadow Seer, but that doesn't make sense. But this is another card that so I've seen a couple times, but is a card I've always liked from a design perspective because of how flavorful it is. So it's a 2-cost 3/1 that has elusive and ephemeral, and it has on Nexus Strike, create a copy of me in hand. So the cool thing about this card is it's powerful for one, right? It's a 2-cost for elusive 3/1, but it incentivizes attacking and dealing damage to the opponent so that you can get it back in your hand and double that value. So the more creative you are with using it, and the more advantageous it becomes if you can keep satisfying that condition. Which there are a couple of decks that do some cute stuff with it to pull that off. Even cloning her and then being able to attack with all of them and then putting all of them back in your hand, right? So it's like sort of ephemeral, but it's a cool card. And I wish I saw it more, and I think there is more to it. I think the cost of it makes it kind of weird. If it was had a little more stats and was higher up on the cost curve, maybe it would see more play. Because there's too much competition in this space, especially with the decks that you would expect this to be in.
I honestly have always thought that this should be a 1-drop, because the stat wise for a 1-drop, it is on board with the Noxus one that's a 3/1 that can't block, attack wise, and you want to. This isn't something that you, as far as with aggro, that you want to depend on your curve. You just want it to be added damage.
Yeah, so. I think a one cost at a 2/1 I would think would be cool, because you're keeping card advantage, but you're also sacrificing board to start off.
But maybe, you're not guaranteed to keep the card advantage. I mean, this is we're talking about a little vile feast real quick, and you just healed your opponent for 1, and you lost that card advantage.
Good point.
That's why I feel like it's a 1-drop. It'd be all right, but
that's a good point.
The very first ephemeral deck I was built around this and Shark Chariot, so it's a card that's near and dear to me.
Go back to our episode involving Shark Chariot if you want to know more. There was a good bit on that one. But the other cool thing is obviously the shadow arts that we know is the forbidden art that Zed came across while at his homeboy's house. Shen. But what follower do you have for us? You have another shadowy figure.
Yes, indeed, another shadowy figure, and this one is definitely what you think of as far as being ninja styles. So the Shadow Assassin. So 3 mana, 2/2 elusive. When I'm summoned, draw 1. If you have seen an Ionia deck that it does not have this card in it, I'm calling you a liar. It had this card in it, they just never drew it.
Bread and butter.
Bread and butter. It's like this. It has been in every Ionia deck since the beta. It's a great card. It's everything you can ask of a 3-drop. A decent health stat where it's not going to be just taken out by lower mana cost. The elusive tag means it can be aggro. Mm-hmm. It's drawing you a card, so you could throw it in into a control deck too, because you're not losing your card advantage and getting a blocker. It's literally everything you want in a card.
Very
solid card. But it's also one that's not quite as along the lines of Shadow Seer, where it's showing that someone that is kind of on the fence as far as the yin and yang. They still view themselves as a member of the Kinku, but they also have problems with the way that they operate. and we're gonna get into that more story wise. Like it's a really cool card, and specifically with both of the champions we're gonna talk about today, there's a lot of voice interactions between the champions in this card specifically. So if you want, go ahead, build a joke deck together, play some AI games, start hearing some of those voice lines.
They're cool.
It's the story of Ionia, as far as the characters of the cards, is immersive.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually happy they don't have a database for the voice lines, so you can be more surprised and be more enveloped in that when you're playing the game. It's something that I definitely put my headphones in every time I play, right? Sometimes I'll play silently with other card games, but not this one. But let's get into our champion. So Zed, to start us off, the bad guy, if you couldn't tell by all the blades on his armor.
Alexa, play Billie Eilish. Bad guy.
Yeah, so Zed is an orphan. He's taken in by Great Master Kusho, who's Shen's father, and we'll get into that. But he was raised like his other son alongside Shen, but never could really beat him in a duel. They're kind of two different personalities. Zed is very emotional. Shen lacks it. And they were skilled at a very young age, which came to their detriment because their father decided, hey, let's go hunt this mass murderer named the Golden Demon, who we end up finding out is Jin.
We all remember that one camping trip we did with, our father figure. Like, hey, you know what? I'm going to pull you out of school early on Friday. We're going to hit the road. We're going to track down some serial killers. Maybe get some hot dogs. We've all been there.
Yeah. So during this time, they end up catching him, but they have to witness all of the murders because it's kind of like a serial killer style thing where he's leading them on a trail. And we'll get into the story of Jin in the future. But yeah, after witnessing all this, when they finally catch Jin, his father's like, we're just going to put him in prison. He'll serve his time and repent kind of thing. And Zed is like, oh, no, I don't like that at all. He needs to pay the ultimate price. And this ends up driving Zed out of the order, right? The Kinku order, and down this dark path to the hidden, forbidden arts of Ionia. So he goes somewhere where he shouldn't go to learn something he shouldn't learn, and he come back ignorant. And he ends up confronting his father on the whole situation with Noxus and how they should strike first instead of waiting to be attacked and being defensive. And that's when he just kind of says, you know what, I'm out, I'm moving out. And he leaves. And he leaves with that knowledge and then creates his own order and starts teaching people it. And this is where it gets dangerous because he decides, I need to know more and I need to go back and get that information from, the Kinku order. So he returns home with his homies. His dad's like, kind of tells everybody, just chill. It's cool. I want him here. And, I it's my fault that he did this. It's my fault for not being there for him. And he ends up killing his father. And his soldiers end up killing a lot of other disciples most of them, really, leaving only Shen and a couple others left. He takes the black box and then he bounces and he just goes on like a war spree with attacking Noxus every chance he gets. It's almost like, Avatar: Last Airbender is a pretty popular show right now as this resurgence, right? And Prince Zuko is a good example in the later stories of just this anger where he can't figure out why he's never satisfied with going for that first strike and tearing down your enemies, doing exactly what you're supposed to do by destiny, but still not being satisfied. And like Zed is a great example of that unable to feed that hunger.
Yeah, I'm very glad you brought up the Last Airbender because like a lot of the stories we're gonna hit in Ionia definitely feel like they have a duality with that. Like you can tell that they kind of feed on each other almost, and so I'm definitely going to reference it too. So, so thanks for stealing my thunder, I guess.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of overlap for this one, right? Because their stories almost told together because they grew up together. So half their story is the same. But yeah, so Zed the card, he's a 3-cost 3/2 with quick attack. He has on attack, summon and attack Living Shadow with his stats. And then when him and his shadow have struck the Nexus twice, or him, it's weird the way they they word this, and it took people to figure it out. So if he hits it once and the shadow hits it once, that counts as 2, right? It creates a living shadow, or it flips him, and his flipped gives him +1/+1 on each end. So he ends up with 4/3, and then he still has quick attack, but the shadow now also gets his keywords in addition to his stats. So it would get quick attack or whatever else he has. This card is another bread and butter in aggro. Not even just aggro, just in general. It's a good bridge card from getting from one portion of the game, one phase of the game to another, because he does attract removal spells. He does attract your opponent can't just ignore Zed. That's not a thing. It's similar to Draven. You can't just ignore it because it starts to get really annoying and affect later turns in the game.
Yeah, there's no avoiding this one. Like you have to deal with it immediately because there's also very popular decks like Swim's elusive Demacia Ionia deck, where it abuses Zed in standalone. And let me tell you, I've been on the receiving end. And if
we've all been there.
If all of a sudden a Zed becomes like +6/+6, and he's summoning freaking 9/8s with first strike, you're like, what do I do?
Why is this happening to me?
I thought I could take care of this later. I thought there was time.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, this is a good one. The quotes again on Zed. So like the first half has balance is a fool's master. The shadows have shown me true power. And then that follow-up once he flips, it says, few men think to look back at their shadows. It is their last mistake. Yeah, he's very, it's weird because he tends, we'll get into this in Shen's thing. He tends to feel like he's different with his platitudes, with his view on order, and but he almost is, I mean, he was raised in it, right? He was raised in it, although he's pointing all of this theory and these beliefs into a more darker path. He still is preaching his own gospel. So the thing he hates, he has become with his new order. But go ahead with Shamba.
Yeah, and the last point on Zed is like his voice, like the voice lines that you just read out, but like his story, and also with your spell of choice for this episode, with the dusk. Why can I not talk today?
Dawn and Dusk.
With the spell Dawn and Dusk, the quote on that is that he's a villain with a higher purpose, a villain with a cause.
Yeah.
So he's gonna be labeled as the bad guy just because he is very much like the Ionians are kind of like the airbenders. Like they are very peaceful people, and he views this aggression as a threat, and it's like, let's just get rid of the threat instead of just being peaceful.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more in there, and we just haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
So, but let's talk about his brother. Well, or the adopted brother. So Shen. Yeah. Shen is the son of the Eye of Twilight in the Kinku Order, which so the Kinku Order is pretty much the village of ninjas. If anyone, I've outed myself as a weeb multiple times already, so obvious Naruto reference. It's like the ninja villages. Mm-hmm. So the Kinku would be the hidden leaf of Ionia.
Yep.
And his father is the great master Kusho, and Kusho spent his time leading the order as far as much meditation, watching the stars, and trying to lead the Kinku order on a path of enlightenment and peace. Mm-hmm. And enlightenment also being a card effect that we're not even going to talk about in this episode because he doesn't do that on his card. But that's what he's looking for. So poor guy still hasn't found it. So Shin grew up with his adopted brother Zed, and they trained together. I'm echoing Ryan at this point, but all of this came to an end when they went out for hot dogs and found serial killers instead. And when with the serial killers, Shin stays with his dad, and his dad says that we're not going to punish the serial killer, or we're not going to give him capital punishment. Zed disagrees and leaves, and this sets a path. This sets a path for Shin, where he finds himself reluctantly following. He has been taught all of his life as far as searching for peace and enlightenment, and he agrees that he must follow the teachings of his father, which is the leader of the Kinku Order, because it's for the good of the Kinku Order, which is ultimately the good of all people, not just Ionia, but they believe that this is going to bring peace for all. So he's following this path, but he has his doubts. And these doubts constantly plague him, especially when he returns from meditating one night into a war zone with ninjas being attacked by fellow ninjas. And amidst the chaos, he sees his dead father and Zed standing above him with a black box of the sacred, the Mark Hamill, the sacred text. But he's standing there with the black box, and it's forbidden in ninjutsu. And all of a sudden, it's like all this time of focusing and meditating and trying to look ahead, he has to act now. So he is able to rally the Kinku Order and get out successfully, as far as not really fighting back. They're not fighting to repel. He is just trying to get everyone out. So then they retreat, and he rebuilds the Kinku Order, and he rebuilds it continuing to teach what his father taught, as far as constantly searching for peace and enlightenment. Among the new acolytes, he ends up training an acolyte that shows a lot of promise in Akali. Akali, for anyone who's not too familiar with the champions, in Runeterra, she's not a playable card at all, but she was in the promotion video for Ionia, and I would have lost a lot of money if I put it down on who I was betting was going to be the new champion when the Bilgewater set came out. But so Akali is a very promising individual, and Shin ends up training her, but just like in that promotional video, he's constantly having to reinforce in her restraint, because Akali is very similar as far as to Zed, of wanting to see threat, remove threat. Mm-hmm. And he is constantly having to teach her to sheath her mortal weapons. And this continues until Akali finishes her training and ends up renouncing the teachings of true peace and enlightenment. But she obviously doesn't go on a killing spree. She confronts Shin, and they discuss. And she's saying that this way is not going to ever lead to peace. It will only lead to more ruin. And Shin lets her go, knowing that she has to find her own path, and now he must really look at the path that he's on. Yeah. And that's what we have is Shin reaching this crossroad. And will he continue down the path that his father laid out for him, or will he continue down a different path and bring the Kinku Order as far as being a powerhouse to defend Ionia? Mm-hmm. And we don't know. Stay tuned to Riot Stories to find out.
So Shen is very cool. It's funny you talk about the father again. The father really reminds me of General Iroh, right? We're going to keep making this back and forth between Avatar.
The more champions in Ionia we hit, it's going to make even more sense that we're
exactly. We'll get there. But that thought of, always seeking peace even in your enemies, right? And to try to find, you're not just trying to solve the problems for your people, but also the people who are causing the problems. You want them to be, happy and to be better as well. And you see that a lot in just like general. We're not going to get into psychiatry and all that. But when it comes to facing an aggressor or facing someone who's harassing you, they are often taught to, reach out to that person and see what's going on with that person, right? Rather than just, attacking back or going super defensive, is because there's always something that's driving that, and both people can find peace. Anyways, but yeah, so Shen is a cool character to me. I mean, I've always liked him. And you can talk about the card real quick.
Yeah, and his story does grow. Obviously, like the base of his lore is just the beginning, and there's just so much just to the story of Shen and Zed that we're being given even more now. Like I'm looking forward to really diving into Ionia just further and further. But the card, so Shen really mimics his League of Legends character very well, as in that he is the worst ninja ever. He is not a good ninja.
Tank ninja. I was so confused when they released it. I was so confused.
The threads were endless, and I'm pretty sure they still exist. Yeah. But so Shen is a 4-mana 3/5, and he has support. Ninja. So give my supported ally barrier this round, and he flips when you give barriers 4+ times, but he has to see it. So he's on the field with 4+ barriers, and his flipped version is the +1/+1, still the support, and all allies with barriers get +3/+0 this turn. And obviously there was in the beta, before Shen got nerfed in beta, with the Green Glade Keeper, there were some nasty decks running around with Shen, and like that, a lot of people underestimated the amount of damage that Shen was able to really produce. And then even after he got reworked a little bit, got tweaked around, and then after the game went live, he received a little bit of a buff. I still think people just take for granted the amount of pressure Shen represents on a board, because it's no joke. Yeah. It absolutely no joke.
I was obsessed with this card from day one. I mean, same thing in League of Legends. It's just, I thought it was a really cool interaction. I like Shen as a character. I tend to veer to more like support style decks as well. Even when I play, tempo style, so I like to build around things. So yeah, when this card came out, I was like, okay, they nailed it. Like, we've said that so much. There's so many cards in this game where they just nail the lore. You know how you have, other card games where they have these throwaway cards where they're just they're meant for draft, or they're meant for fodder for when you open a pack, but they don't put as much into them as you see in any of the cards in Runeterra when it comes to lore, and then representing that lore inside the card itself. So
yeah, they just do such a good job with it, and not only with the fact that like this is what Shen feels like in League of Legends, but also that his duplicate copy in hand is Stand United, which is just straight up his ultimate spell in League of Legends. It's all right there. They do such a good job as far as just translating the two games between each other. And that's the whole reason this podcast is even possible, is how well of a job Riot's done in writing out a story and then presenting it in a creative way.
Yeah. Another reason, this podcast is possible is our end segment. I'm just joking. We're not there yet. Fate of the game. I hit him with that. I wanted to let him know. But Fate of the game, we're going to talk about Gauntlet real quick again, because I actually got to play it.
What'd you think?
All right, I get it. I mean, it's fine. It's more to do. I feel like it's a cool concept because they can introduce these other modes. Like, so the first weekend, right? It only runs on the weekend. That's another thing I don't really like that much. Is the fact, because it's very hard to be time boxed. And I think they will expand it because, Magic has made the same mistake where they try to time box things too tightly for these events. So people just miss them because, life is going on. Even though we're trapped inside for COVID, it's still going on. So it's hard to line up. But that being said, I don't like the time box thing a lot. But I do like, the first one was just a standard kind of approach. And now we have Singleton for this past weekend, which that was cool. Because it allowed some creative stuff to come out. So I'm liking it. I like that they have another option. And the funny thing is, having that expedition and the standard laddering mode already feels like enough content for a while, right? That's a lot of gameplay to do. and plenty of stuff to, especially for getting cards. Like there's cool and icons and stuff like that. I do think they're gonna have to start cranking out cosmetic stuff a little faster because people are really enjoying that stuff, and they have so many avenues to allow you to get stuff for it. So I get they have to make money there, but there does need to be a lot more cosmetic and stuff you can unlock with just playing and getting like tokens, or trade your expedition tokens for something else or whatever.
Especially for like myself, I have a really hard time getting into expeditions, and because I've drafted in Magic a lot, and I had the same problem anytime I tried Arena, which was I couldn't play draft online.
Yeah,
it felt like a chore, and I don't know why. Because drafting at a shop was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But so I would love to see if there was something different to do with the expedition tokens, personally. But your boy had fun with the singleton. Pursuit of Perfection all day. I dropped out of the gauntlet, went and played Standard, and played a couple games of Pursuit of Perfection. Lost every single one of them. But I had fun.
Well, we have more fun for you, Edge. It's not going to be bad.
How dare you
this
lie to me? This
episode's not going to be bad. This one's going to be easy. So basically, what would your ninja theme be? If you were a ninja in this universe, what would it be? And mine, I always go to it because whenever I see it in anything, once again, Avatar, I like earth-based magic. Like not in a druid sense, but just manipulating like boulders and things around you to either make you stronger or to hide yourself. So I'd definitely be some kind of earth-style ninja. I don't know, covered in moss or whatever you want to call it. What about you? What's your element of choice?
Okay. Like, so if we're going by like element, if we're just thinking along the lines of the elements, it probably would be like around like fire.
Okay.
I'm a very passionate person.
Like a scorpion style from like Mortal Kombat type of fire. Where
I see again.
Like,
I'm thinking more like Naruto, so kind of like the Itachi clan.
Okay.
As far as just being able to like breathe fire is super cool to me. But if we're not just shoehorning into the elements, I'm gonna reference Naruto again because I would totally just be Choji.
Oh, yeah, Choji
my element would be food. Just food. Do the hand signs, all that jazz, and then boom, sandwich. So maybe I don't want to be. Maybe I don't want to be a ninja. Maybe I just want to be
a chef.
Just want a ninja chef. Just put on a show.
That would be funny.
Using real ninjutsu.
That would be good.
And you try to dine and dash in my place, you're gonna get shuriken-shaped pickles like in the back of your neck.
No. Just carry around two chef knives. All right, so that does it for this episode. This very zen. No, it felt more chill, right? Like we weren't. There's like
Ionia's story overall, like it's sad, but it's chill.
Yeah.
Like it's everyone's just like, nah, man, peace and love.
Chill vibes, brah. But thanks for listening.
We need more of that today, guys.
I know, right?
Just peace and love, just chill.
Yeah, and as always, we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Take care, everybody.